May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, doing our bit to help preserve the legacy of Shinju Suzuki and those whose paths cross his, and anything else that comes to mind. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. So today we have a guest, Renshin Bunce. And I'm going to, we've got a lot on her on Cuke.com. I think Peter Ford has spiffed her page up in preparation for this. So I'm going to read from that page about her. In midlife, yearning for a peaceful mind, I began meditating. I met my teacher, Myogen Steve Stuckey, in January of 1994. I made Jukai, took my lay vows with Myogen at Dharma Eye Zen Center in 1996, was priest-ordained by Zenke Blanche Hartman at San Francisco Zen Center in 2003, served as Shuso head student with Myogen at Tassajara in 2008, and received Dharma transmission from him at Tassajara in April of 2013. So, that's from her website, renshinbunce.com, RENSHINBUNCE.com. To join in with Renshin Bunce in her Beginner's Mind Zen meditation groups, they're on Thursday, 5:30 p.m. in person, Myrtletown, Eureka, and 7 p.m. Zoom. And you can email her about how to join at renshin@gmail.com. Hey, she's got a great Suzuki story. I love it. I'm going to ask her to write it up. I'm going to send her an email after I do this and ask her to write it up to enter. But you'll hear it. 1964 too, way back. But she didn't end up coming to Zen Center till, like she said, 94. Or started practicing there. Anyway, she gets into all that in the podcast. So listen, she's done 3 books, and here they are. Remembering Myogen Steve Stuckey, 2023. Love and Fear, Stories from a Hospice Chaplain, 2020. Entering the Monastery, 2014. All 3 of them are good. And Entering the Monastery is a nice picture of Tassajara. And you can get them all on Amazon. And there's more. There's some, on her page here, there's a link to a YouTube video, another where she's an interview in the Simplicity Zen podcast. Oh, and she's got 10 zillion photos there, and we have links to all that. Anyway, let's just get going here with her and see what she has to say. Well, Hi, how you doing?
What a thrill! What a thrill, David. I'm very excited about this.
Oh, good. Me too. Me too.
Good.
Tell me what you're up to. That's what I want to hear.
I'm up here in Eureka, California. I moved up here 3 years ago when I retired because of climate. It's very cool because we're above the fire line, right? I
Mm.
moved the year of all the wildfires in Sonoma, which is where I had thought I would retire. It's very beautiful, and housing costs are good. So I'm up here um, teaching quite a bit, which is a great pleasure. And being retired, taking walks and reading books. And it's not the way I thought it was going to be, but it is definitely the way it is.
Now, you're in Eureka, so are
Yeah.
you involved with the Zen group in Arcata?
I'm friends with the Zen group in Arcata. I give talks there from time to time, and I have a wonderful sitting group of my own, which
Hmm.
is really what I wanted. I lived at Zen Center for 7 years. I had enough of I went to enough meetings.
Yeah.
I had enough conversations and politics, and so being friends. And the guiding teacher up there is Jean Bush, and Jean and I were at Tassajara together.
Mm.
So that's great. So I can rent the Zendo for my own 1 day sittings.
Mm.
So it's friendly, and that's part of the consideration in deciding to move up here.
Mm. Mm.
And then I'm still attached, what's the word we use? Affiliated with Norman and Everyday Zen.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I sit sesshin with them every year, and I'm the practice leader for the 1 day sittings online, and it's just really, Norman. It's really wonderful to be connected to that bunch of people.
Yeah, I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
He's a great example for all of us. So he's a student of Catherine Thanos, and now I think student or close with Linda Ruth. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's up in Arcata half time. So he drives from Santa Cruz to Arcata every 2 weeks, which is, I don't know, 6 hours, 7 hours. I'm like, oh my God.
Maybe he was the first guest for a podcast.
Really?
Yeah. Um,
As I said to you, I was just recovering from a surgery and not able to do much. And I began going through the archives and listening to the podcasts. And I treasure your keeping the history of this lineage. Really wonderful to hear what my friends have to say for themselves.
yeah. Well, it's wonderful for me to. Uh, yeah. I. He. But it was very brief. It was near the start of COVID, and there's a student there with the group, um, and he mentioned that they were doing. It made you go kind of go to while washing hands because they could do it in 20 seconds. So I had him do that for one of my very first, maybe the second podcast I
Great,
did uh,
great.
6 years ago, over 6 years ago. Yeah, April.
I know you said at the start of COVID, and I thought, oh, it's only that recent that you've been doing this, but yeah, 6 years.
Yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that something? My,
Isn't that- Yeah.
my. Well, uh, so where are you from?
I'm a total California person. I was born in Marin, We were living there because my dad was working at Marine Ship during, do you know there was a big Kaiser Victory shipyard in Sausalito, building Victory ships. So that's what my dad was doing.
Mm.
So I can say living in Sausalito, but but we weren't fancy.
Mm-hmm.
Both of my parents were alcoholics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an alcoholic, on and on, how that goes. So they were divorced when I was a little baby. And my mom took my older and sister and me down to Pasadena. And that's where I was raised, which was great. Southern California in the 50s, before smog, orange blossoms, sunshine. It was really a wonderful place to be raised.
Mm. Mm. What
Yeah,
year
and then
were
back
you?
up to the Bay Area for college.
Mm-hmm.
Graduated. I consider myself to be a very lucky person. So I graduated from San Francisco State in 1964.
Uh-huh.
Summer of summer of love spread in front of me. Boys, sex, drugs, rock and roll. 5 years in New York,
What
which was pretty good.
what were you doing in New York?
I was trying to get someone to marry me. Yeah, I put my all into it, David. So I did that by, I was a waitress at Max's Kansas City. I living in the Chelsea Hotel, living with this guy, living with that guy. And because of my alcoholism and the drugs, there were some very serious drugs, because this would have been the 60s. That was like 65 to 70.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a hard time in New York. And I was very happy to get back to California. And then I got sober when I was 35.
Oh, pretty good.
Yeah,
Pretty
been
good.
sober ever since. Yeah, very good.
Yeah. I didn't stop drinking till I was almost 60. I stopped everything right then. Of course,
Yep, got to stop everything.
but my wife is my sponsee. No, my sponsor. But I, I, I'm just a friend of friends of Bill.
So it's my good meditation story. I had, yes, I was unable to meditate. When I was living in New York, I would carry around spiritual books. I'd throw the I Ching. I was interested in that side of life,
Yeah.
but I couldn't really practice. After I got sober, and AA is very Christian, and I loved that. God, Jesus. I joined an Episcopal church,
Mm,
finally some guidance, right? Tell
mm,
me, tell me what to do. But then you hit the time when God doesn't seem to be taking care of you, and it shakes your faith. So I was a really good AA. I was very desperate by the time I got to AA. I was, in fact, without a home and unemployable and so on.
oh.
I worked it hard. And then when I was 9 years sober, I'd had a lot of therapy. I'd had a lot of AA. I'd had a lot of husbands. I'd had a lot of jobs. And nothing was working. And I was back in that really desperate
Mm,
state. And I was scared. And I went back to the steps of AA. What have I missed? Right? AA was supposed to fix me, and I was so broken.
mm,
And the only thing that was in the steps that I had never been able to do, the word meditation is there. So I was so desperate. I went to James Barra's, one of the Vipassana teachers,
yeah.
and they have that great 6 week teach you how to meditate. And something I really appreciate about that is you don't have to meditate till the fifth week. So
Wow.
Yeah, really. So they ease you into it.
Ah,
And I think the first thing that James did, I know that what he was doing was presenting the teachings. And I think the first thing he did was present us with the Four Noble Truths.
mm,
And I felt like this is what I've been looking for.
mm.
So I've been meditating ever since. I've been sober ever since, and here we are with all the twists and turns. One story I have to be sure to tell you, David, is in '64 after I graduated from college. I got this great apartment on the second floor of a Victorian at Bush and Laguna.
Goodness.
Bush and
Really?
Laguna, right? Right? My neighbor, who was a pretty unstable guy, told me that weird big building across the street, he said, that's a Zen center. And he said, this guy has come from Japan. He's a Zen master. And you can go over there and he will teach you Zen. And of course, that was Suzuki Roshi. But I said to my neighbor, what is Zen?
Mm-hmm.
And my neighbor said, it's a way to end desire. So I did not cross the street and I did not meet Suzuki Roshi.
Ah,
I was 21 years old and I was just getting going on desire.
ha, ha,
And of
ha.
course, he was mistaken. I,
Yeah.
I yeah.
There's no end to desire.
Better learn to live with it, I would say.
Suzuki said, if somebody asked him a question like that, how do I end desire? He said something like, well, without desire, you won't be alive.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
It's in the vows. Desires are endless. So I did go to Page Street while I was still drinking. I would go for the Saturday morning, not to meditate, but for the lecture.
Hmm.
So I met Richard
What year?
Baker. Well, I got sober in '79, so it would have been the mid to late '70s. I know I heard Paul Reps, unforgettable. I heard Paul Reps,
Whoa.
heard Richard Baker at Green Gulch and had lunch with him.
Hmm.
Maybe the most, thinking about talking with you, thinking of these wonderful memories. We were in the Buddha Hall at Page Street before lecture, and I was always hungover, jangly, unhappy, defensive. There was a woman sitting there, and she was wearing a black robe, and she was just sitting there. And I looked at her and I thought, what do you know? She clearly knew something.
Mm.
You could see it. Later, when I was living at Tassajara, I was going through old wind bells and I saw a picture of Pat Phelan. So that was Pat Phelan.
Oh.
Just by just sitting still in the Buddha Hall, she carried this immensely powerful message.
Mm.
Of course, what she knew, I don't know. Maybe that it's better to try to be quiet, try to learn your mind.
Mm.
So none of, oh, and then when I had lunch with Richard Baker, I got my first copy of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And I thought the answer would be in there. But it wasn't, because all he talked about was meditation. And meditation was not my answer. So I kept that book and didn't open it for 10 years. And now it's the copy of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind that I use to teach. So I was nosing around. I thought there might be something, but I didn't have the ability to sit still with my mind for 1 minute, certainly until I was sober for quite some time.
Mm. Mm.
But I remember Richard Baker giving the talk. I remember things he said, right?
Mm. Like what?
Powerful. David, he talked about people jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And he said that there's probably a reason that they do it facing the city.
That's right.
Isn't memory incredible that I remember? I mean, that's
Yeah.
40, 45 years ago.
Yeah.
But the charisma and the brilliant mind. I remember him saying, talking about a moment when he was walking down Bush Street and he understood, I think the way it went was that the sun that was shining on him was shining on everyone else too.
Yeah.
It was something like that. Yeah.
Mm. There was a student who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge, living at Green Gulch. I
Is
think
that right?
living at Green Gulch. She might not have been at the
Probably
time.
what that was about then. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Anyway,
That's that's no doubt what he was talking about, and I was just another chump sitting there listening. I couldn't catch the allusion.
I don't know how much of a student she was. Her sister was the main student, and so I really I really can't. I don't know the details. I just remember it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. People jump facing the city almost without exception.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what were you doing? How were you supporting yourself all this time?
Um, fooling around, waiting tables, drove a cab in New York for a little while. I was a fast typist, so I did a lot of office temps. And then I and after I got sober and after I got divorced, that's when, and by that time I was in my 40s, and that's when you get your real estate license. So when I came to Zen Center as a serious student, I was driving a Mercedes, wearing high heels, and I had long red fingernails
No
because I
kidding.
was
Wow.
selling. My first multi-day retreat was with Ruth Dennison, the old Vipassana teacher down around Joshua Tree.
Uh huh.
She was Ruth was great, and her when they were assigning the jobs, they said to me, "Well, would you go and wash the dishes?" And I said, "But I just got a manicure." So, so I was this square peg in the round hole selling real estate in San Francisco for 17 years. That was rough, man.
Wow.
And I left that to move to Tassajara.
Now, what year did you first? I, I, when did you first come? When did you decide to be a student or try it out or whatever?
I stayed in Vipassana, which was great. I finally began to do something other than sit and think about myself. When I did a 10-day retreat with Joseph Goldstein finally broke through the chatter
Mm.
and told me how, oh, you can actually meditate. I was in Jack Cornfield's Monday night group for a long time when it was in the church in Fairfax. So the Vipassanas were, there were a couple of Tibetan teachers they were introducing, and I ended up, how did this go? I was on a workshop with Yvonne, love Yvonne. I was on a workshop with Yvonne at Green Gulch. I was always in a sitting group, because if I wasn't in a sitting group, I didn't sit at all. And at that time, I was without a sitting group, and a good-looking man said, that he was part of a sitting group in Mill Valley. So at the break, I went up to him and I said, "Well, where's your sitting group in Mill Valley?" Because he was cute. And his sitting group was Steve Stuckey's sitting group.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how I found out about Steve, and that's how I began sitting with Steve.
Yeah.
And after I'd been sitting with Steve, I was on this month-long Dzogchen retreat in upstate New York. And I was walking at night. It was so hot, couldn't walk during the day. And I was taking my walk, and Steve entered my mind. And I went, oh no, I'm a Zen student. I didn't want to be a Zen student. It seemed to be the strictest and the least fun of all of the possibilities. But because of Steve, and a later story that Steve told, he told a story about driving the Peacock from Green Gulch to Alan Chadwick, who was living in a tent. So Steve Stuckey and Richard Baker in a Volkswagen drove the Peacock,
To
returned
Covelo.
it, got it out of Green Gulch.
Yeah, to Covelo.
And after that, having a cup of tea, and then they're leaving, and Steve Stuckey says to Richard Baker, "Why Zen?" Right? And Richard Baker says, because it produced Suzuki Roshi. So my story is similar. Steve Stuckey was such an extraordinary person. And what he was presenting was Zen. And so I had to put aside my prejudices and put on a black robe, and thank God for that.
Well, what year did you first come to Zen Center as a student?
I did my first non-residential practice period at City Center in '99. I made Jukai with Steve. Remember when we built the little Zendo in Gerstle Park? And
Yeah.
in I remember your then wife coming in and saying, "Why are these people walking around my neighborhood carrying Zafus?" We're like, look, we have a Zendo.
Well,
So,
I knew that Zen. I lived 2 blocks away.
oh, I know.
Yeah.
Nina Wiles was right next. That was a great neighborhood.
Yeah.
So, so, so I made Jukai there in '96, and through all of this time, I was sitting sesshin, usually, yes, at Green Gulch, always at Green Gulch. So I sat sesshin with Norman when he was abbot, sat sesshin with Reb. That was hard work, man. So, and I went to Tassajara as a guest. Yeah, I connected with Ed Brown. I was doing Ed's one-day sittings at Green Gulch. And then because I had a connection with Ed, that gave me the courage to go to Tassajara. I did an Ed and Patty Zen and Yoga workshop. And so after Jukai, say 97, 98, I went to Steve. I said, "What do I have to do? Do I have to give up everything and move to Tassajara?" And Steve said, "Well, why don't you try a non-residential practice period at City Center?" So I did, and that was 99. And it was just when Crooked Cucumber had come out, David. And I remember how much fun that was. Everybody was reading Crooked Cucumber. It was, wow, they bought City Center. Wow. It was really, and it was so exciting for me. Alcoholism is the disease of loneliness. My childhood, my family, not a lot of support. So I've always thought that I came to Zen Center as I eventually moved in. I moved in 2000 was my first Tassajara practice period, and I came looking for family. So that feeling of coming to Page Street and Blanche, I had sewn my rockasoo with Blanche, and she couldn't have been happier to have me walk in that door. And we were all the, we were all the people, and we were learning the ceremonies, and it was a wonderful time. It was a wonderful, yeah, it felt like home, right? Jukai, the ceremony of homecoming, it felt like that.
You came to practice at Zen Center in the late '90s, but you'd been
I
doing.
no, yeah.
I
I
mean,
started practicing with Steve. I met Steve in 93.
yeah, there you go. Uh,
Yeah. And I started with the Vipassanas. I took my first meditation class in 88.
there, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, you don't have to be living at Zen Center or anywhere to be practicing with it or in that lineage or uh 80, but 88, is that when you did your first Vipassana meditation?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Thought I was going to die. Yep.
Yeah.
We had to we had to meditate for 20 minutes. Thought I was going to die. For many years, I did what looked like meditating just to get my ticket punched so I could hear the teachings. And
Uh-huh.
going to Jack Cornfield's Monday night group, right? Jack really, he's so charismatic. He really lays it out beautifully. So that kept me trying to sit, as I say, until Joseph Goldstein finally got something through to me. And I began to develop the ability to watch my own mind, which is what we have to learn how to do.
Mm. Well, you have quite quite a path there. I mean, uh, you sat with you know a number of teachers, uh, Vipassana and Zen.
I've
Uh,
had a great time. I did a practice period with Pema Chodron up in Nova Scotia.
oh, is that
That was
right?
that was great. Yeah, yeah. And I went to the one Ramonji in Iowa. Have you ever been there?
Been there? No.
Oh, it's fantastic. You go through cornfields, and then you're not even on a road anymore. It's gravel, and then you come around a corner, and here's the biggest, most Japanese building. He's built a perfect Japanese monastery in the middle of Iowa. I've traveled around a lot. I went up to Zen Mountain Monastery, practiced with Daido Luri. I'm just
Oh,
that
in
way.
that's like Woodstock, New York.
Woodstock-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah,
near
upstate.
there. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. But where it all settled down was with Steve and at Tassajara. I was at Tassajara I did 8 practice periods. I did 2 summers, and that's what I'm always touching back to. It was so hard. It was so hard, right? And it was just the best. Just no escape, no escape. You are going to meditate. You are going to watch your mind. You're going to learn a little discipline. And I think it was my last practice period there was when I was Shuso with Steve. And it was his first practice period there in 20 years after he became abbot. And
Mm.
that was super fun, super fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then after that, I had 4 years at City Center, and that was kind of hell. It was City Center's rough, right? As someone explained at some point, the the walls are very porous, and
Mm-hmm.
so there's a lot of city in the building, and you have to be able to deal with that. Blanche ordained me, and after ordination, things got really difficult between us. Blanche did eventually, she did eventually fire me. She did eventually. I wouldn't do it her way, and she said she wouldn't be my teacher anymore.
Hmm.
So that happens, and I'm one of those. Of course, I'm one of the people. Of course, they didn't have much tolerance for my temper, for my difficulties, I will say.
Well, what are they? I can't. I don't. I don't know about them.
Them, my difficulties,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't.
being
I
human.
don't have any sense of any difficulty. One thing, you look very young. What year were you born?
I just turned 82.
No kidding.
It's
Wow.
yeah, I know it's really pretty amazing.
Yeah, you have a very you have really good color. You have very smooth skin. Uh,
I'm
you could
very lucky.
easily, I mean, what I see, you could easily pass for late 60s.
Yeah, and I get comments about it, and I will sometimes say, well, a lot of meditation, this is what it does, but it's also genetics. I think
Yeah,
it's sobriety
yeah.
and staying staying curious. I'm still very curious about the world.
Hmm.
When
Hmm.
after I left Zen Center,
Wait a
I
minute. You
became
haven't told me what the problem was with you.
oh just being human, not being able to control my emotions, really just in the early stages of learning who I was. And this is one of the reasons that Steve was so good for me, because Steve was,
At this point in the podcast talk with Renshin Bunce, Drinka knocked on the door to the studio and said there was an emergency, that we had problems with the windows in the guest room, and we have to be able to close them and turn on the air conditioning because Mako and her mate Joel are arriving soon. We're going to the airport to pick them up. And so I had to deal with that. And then I came back.
and it's great that Mako can come, and I'm sure she needs a vacation.
Yeah, she's got a tough job. But being,
She's got a tough job.
she was here for a month before
Yeah,
she went
yeah,
there to become the city abbot. And
yeah,
it just seemed we were talking about like it was going into a hornet's nest.
yep, which it was.
I don't I mean I have some idea of some of it, but I mean Center seems to be doing pretty well to me. I hear so
I don't
much from
know.
people. Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. The same way that you record history in your way. I've been a photographer at Zen Center for decades, and the last time I saw Mako, I photographed her and Jiryu's mountain seat ceremonies. So I know I had a chance to have a little chat with her then, and she said that she had been with you and been swimming, and it was
yeah,
really, yeah, we were at Tassajara together. It's wonderful to see her and Jiryu too.
yeah,
I was also at Tassajara with Jiryu, and I have the highest regard for them, and I'm hoping for the best, hoping
yeah,
for the best.
yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah, uh, yeah. So yeah, that's something. And she's bringing her mate. What's his name? Do you remember?
Joel,
Joel.
Joel,
Right. I've never met him. So
he's the one who has the tough job. I wonder how it's. They had a story of they arrived and they were living at 340, and one night they were going to go out to dinner, and they went to the restaurant and drove around the block 11 billion times and just came home. They never were able to park and go to the restaurant. So they're getting used to city life. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm also very good friends with Chorio, who took over Mako's spot. Well, anyway, is the abiding teacher at Austin Zen.
Ah, ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So this to touch back to as I perceive it now, I moved into when I moved into Zen Center, I thought that was it. I thought I would live there for the rest of my life. And in retrospect, I would say I was really looking for family. And as I see it now, I found family, but not inside the building. I was told there was no future for me at Zen Center after 7 years. So that's when I trained and was able to get a job as a hospice chaplain. And then I was a hospice chaplain for 12 years. There is some great Zen priest training. that was
Yeah.
that was wonderful. But as it is now, I find myself with friends. I went to Paris last fall. I traveled with Jean Evans, who's one of the Everyday Zen priests, and saw two people in Paris, both Tassajara friends. So it appears that I have family not just in the Bay Area, not just in America, but all over the world. So so yeah, so it's working out pretty well. Plus, I get to live alone and have my own way all the time, which was not true at 300 page. It was
Yeah.
not true.
So did you feel unappreciated?
Definitely, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
just didn't. I
that
didn't
happens.
have.
That
Yeah,
happens. I do run into that. Um, and
Jordan Thorne said to me that it had been like that for him at some point at Green Gulch. He said it lasted about 2 years. And he said to me, all you have to do is stick it out, and eventually you'll be back in the in group.
that now listen, Jordan was a master at that. He was
Jordan
master
was,
because he was persecuted for 2 years at Green Gulch for the most. For uh, he had a brief affair with a woman who came. He wasn't a priest wearing robes. He had been a priest, but he'd given up his robes because he'd run into another problem with Zen Center and been away from Zen Center for a few years, and then came back just as a student. And he had this brief affair with her, and she went and he broke up with her, and she was upset, and she went and complained to her to Yvonne, and that started 2 years. Jordan told me he'd been in a meeting a week for over a year at one point. Uh,
you, he,
it was the most. It was just relentless persecution, is what I saw it on one of these. How things can get out of balance in a group. That
yes.
really was awful, and it's not
And he,
really.
and he stuck it out. He stuck it
He stuck
out.
it. Oh boy, did he stick it out! And
Yeah.
one reason Jordan could stick it out is because he's so very naughty. He was a very naughty person. So he, I mean, he really had. Jordan and I were very close, and I used to say Jordan and I have criminal minds. Uh, and ha ha ha, oh yeah.
It's a great quality.
Anyway, he stuck it out. He didn't complain. I mean, he told me stuff, but and rose above it. And
Yep.
after a while, nobody remembered anything about it. It was all forgotten, and he became the Tonto in the city. He was the treasurer
Yep.
again, and
And he
his
was he was loved. Everybody loved Jordan.
oh, everybody loved Jordan. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he is an example of, like, if you run into a problem, and some of his problems with Zen Center, I mean, he was definitely at fault and uh, had lost the true way, and I don't want to get into the details, but came back, was like another person,
Oh,
and stuck it out. And if you compare him to Bill Lane, who had a similar, an even greater problem, Bill never recovered.
yep,
Bill
I knew.
had an enormous sense of failure and guilt. And Bill would come stay with me. He stayed with me a lot. Uh, and Jordan is, to me, a good example for people who get into trouble. And Bill he just couldn't come back in a sense. So anyway,
You
uh,
know, let me tell you this. Remember, what was it called? Buddhism at Millennium's Edge, that series that was done, I think in the year 2000. It was speakers up at the Unitarian Church. Remember that?
right, right, right.
Yeah. So I was an usher and I'm standing in the back and Bill Lane came and stood next to me and I guess we were acquaintances. And let's see, how does this go? He's surveying the scene. And it was nice, right? These were great lectures. They got good turnouts. And Bill Lane just shook his head and he said, when Richard Baker was here, Zen Center was everyone exciting and interesting was here, right? Those were the good old days of Zen Center. It was really pretty cool.
Yeah, and Bill was there in the Suzuki years and the Baker
Yeah.
years, and he liked them both. Um,
He,
I mean, more
he
than
had an
liked them both. He
interesting,
really,
interesting,
uh,
yeah,
you know, he was very grateful to have been there those years.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
yeah, in 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 other ways, he rose above it personally, but in terms of relationship with the group, and he, you know, it was just Bill was very judgmental. See, and Jordan didn't, and so the judgment he turned inward. Uh,
Jordan was jolly.
yeah,
Jordan was jolly. I'm also pals with Julia Tenike, his wife.
uh huh,
Right. I helped Julia. Yes, I helped Julia clean Jordan's apartment after he died. And on the table next to his bed was a stack of lineage documents. I mean, it was in my memory, let's say it was 2 inches thick, you know, pre-printed, and he would write in the name of the student who was making jukai with him, and they were all blank, all unused. And I'm quite sure I took a picture of it because it was such a symbol of how Jordan thought his life was going to go. He was respected, he was loved, he was
yeah,
the Tonto, and then boom, boom, his
yeah,
cancers.
yeah.
Yeah,
I talked to him some, on the phone
good,
while he was dying. Yeah,
good.
it was too bad. It was terrible, and some people were really upset uh, by it. But
Yep,
mm,
yep. A lot of people were very upset.
yeah, I miss him. Yeah,
Bill Lane, Jordan, Richard Baker, Pat Phelan, Yvonne. I got to be, how did this go? I talked with I talked with Yvonne's daughter when Yvonne was on hospice. I don't think that she was our patient. I think, people would from time to time say, oh, there's a Zen priest who's a hospice chaplain and you could talk to her. And those conversations were just as precious as anything could be. And as she described Yvonne's dying, Yvonne, what was one phrase? Yvonne would say things like, I'm going to take everything and roll it up into one big ball of lovely.
Yeah,
See,
Yvonne, she had some sort of dementia, right?
that's that's right.
And
And she had this pleasant,
she,
this wonderful dementia.
she had the best dementia.
Yeah, the
Silas Hoadley. I talked to Yvonne periodically through the years, and her dementia eliminated her difficult side. It was really something.
really something. Roll everything into a big ball of lovely. And then that was during that damn pandemic. And they did her funeral. Her funeral was on Zoom. It was so sad. That's right. And then Hillary eventually had the big funeral for her in the Tiburon Church, and I went
Yeah,
to that, and it was great. But those
yeah,
those Zoom funerals with 4 people were just what a hard time that was.
yeah. The distancing and masking were helpful, but the vaccine made an enormous difference.
Vaccine changed things. I could start going and sitting with my old ladies again, talking to my old ladies. Yeah. I was just terrified. I know that. It was my job I made my living by visiting sick people and getting up close
Yeah,
and kind of. But you know what? When the window episode, when you had to go and talk to Katrinka about the window, what I was talking about, and I want to touch back, was the kind of, and it actually is close to the way we were talking about Jordan. Steve was such an example of just how you can just be kind and what that does to your life and the people around you. So Blanche was very hard on me. She was angry with me a lot of the time because I wasn't being the person she wanted me to be. And she scolded me. I think this is probably no surprise. Blanche was capable of scolding people.
uh
And
huh.
Steve, never, never. And I saw when there would be adversity, if someone would be coming at him, he just remained solid and kind. And that was the greatest teaching. So I like I have quoted many times, right, that Suzuki Roshi said we go to Tassajara and it's like putting rocks in a tumbler, and we wear off the sharp edges. And I do believe that this is true. But I think for my time at Zen Center, my sharp edges were still so sharp, and there was just not much. And it's a matter of timing of who has power at the time that you're there. So
Yeah,
the people who had power just didn't have any patience for
yeah,
for me.
yeah,
Could have
yeah.
stayed too, because the big surprise was that Steve came in as abbot. Absolutely never expected that one. So he was coming in as abbot just at the time that I was moving out, but he was completely on board with the idea of my becoming a chaplain. He was all about that, and of course he was right.
Yeah, yeah,
And then he gave me transmission. I had to, you're right, always the big question, am I going to shave my head? And I'm working with all these dying people. So I did shave my head for transmission, and I bought this $100 wig. And I have pictures of myself with this thing perched on top of my head. I didn't wear it very long. The main thing in being a chaplain and dealing with people who are dying was being authentic, and I was not authentic in that. But the transmission ceremony, we did transmission in April of 13 at Tassajara during work period, and that was really great. And then his cancer emerged in just months later.
yeah,
Yeah. So that's how that went.
yeah, yeah. Really, one of the great tragedies in Zen Center history. to me.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Yep. Things might have been the way they were. Yep.
yeah, yeah, indeed. Mm.
Yeah. Steve and Mel. Steve went to Mel and they looked at his selection of hardwood to for Steve to carve me a kotsu. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Steve and Mel choosing a piece of wood for me, right?
Ah,
It doesn't get any better than that.
ah.
The greats. I hope that whoever we are, I hope that we are producing more giants of Zen like those.
Well, like you said, it just depends on. I mean, who, if somebody goes to Zen Center, they can't say Zen Center is like this, or right? It just depends on who you are relating to, you know,
Totally,
uh,
totally. A big
and
surprise.
if they're uh, how they're doing at the time, it might be which day you relate to them, or
Yep.
but also the cultures evolve in the three centers and Zen Center in general, and it's always changing. But I think it's doing pretty good for an institution. But God, that's always those sorts of things are always problems with institutions.
It was when I moved in with stars in my eyes, thinking that they, whoever they were, would be calculating ways for to further my spiritual growth. I thought that's what Zen Center was for. Big mistake, right? That's between you and your teacher. When I understood that the purpose to the institution, it wasn't there for me, it was there for itself.
That's right.
The job of the institution is to survive as an
That's
institution.
right.
And, and they certainly look like they're doing very well.
That's right. Well, that's important. It's the one thing I've never forgotten. I've fallen back on it since I studied the echo. The chants we chant after the chants that are giving the merit of the chant. And one of the lines in one of the echoes is, well, Nirin Tsuneni Tenji, may the two wheels of the monastery turn forever. So the two wheels of the monastery are the Dharma wheel and the economic wheel.
Yeah.
So the institution surviving and the people who have very, very skillfully and successfully kept Zen Center surviving have kept that wheel going. And then, that was like a group effort, really, to keep that wheel going. And then there's the Dharma wheel, which is more difficult to describe how it is kept going and who and all that.
But it's going. Remember the feeling of walking in the front door at 300 and Page and just the feeling in that place. And in those days, the smell of incense from the Buddha Hall, and you just knew when I was having difficult times, and who are these? What is this? What is this? I would think the point is, if there's another person like me, when I was drinking, when I was desperate, and I was coming up the stairs to listen to a lecture, thinking maybe there's help here, let the doors stay open for that girl, for the person who thinks maybe if I can learn how to meditate, it's going to help.
Yeah,
Keep the doors open for that. Everything else is everything else.
yeah. The I believe still Monday night is 12-step night at
Yep, as
Page
far
Street.
as I know.
And
Well, I started that with Jeffrey and Judith Keenan. We did that in our living rooms. We started talking about, meditation and recovery. Yeah.
uh-huh. And my understanding is that's the best attended, uh, uh, consistently the best attended lecture night.
Good. Good. Set the hook. Good.
Yeah.
I also, you know, with my relationship with Blanche, she very strictly turned me into a sewing teacher, and I taught sewing at City Center for 17 years,
Oh,
which was, yep, and I still am. I still am helping people sew. People are coming up to Eureka to sew. So, and that the old sewing room, people would say, this is the this is the best room in the place, Blanche's old sewing room, and I have a lot of photographs of that.
oh.
That was yeah.
You know, I forgot about you as a photographer. We're in touch, Cuke Archives, in touch with Barbara Lebansky Wenger
Yep.
all the
Yep.
time
Yep.
because of her enormous database, which is online, of photographs. Now, do
Yep.
you have anything like that?
David, I have a Flickr page, and over the winter, I organized my Zen Center ceremonies. I have recorded, I think it's 64 Zen Center ceremonies.
Okay. There's my associate in Cuke Archives. Actually, the guy who runs it is Peter Ford. So he will. I will remind me to. I want to make sure that I'd like to feature that and
It's really, it's
have it, a link to it from our photo pages
great.
and so forth.
Photographs are such a powerful tool for memory. It's such a history. And the shock of how frequently I'm looking for a photograph of someone who's died, I never saw that coming. We just,
Yeah,
Peter Schneider and Alan Sinaki, and
yeah.
I think I have a Flickr page, an in memoriam page. I also have a Flickr page of I collected Rakusu calligraphy, and I have,
Oh,
I
that's
think about,
wonderful.
yeah, and arranged by date with the name of the person who did the writing. It's really great.
Oh, I'll remind me. I'll try to find mine and send it to you. Want me to?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I have
Yes,
a
of course.
few. I haven't done anything systematic at all. I just have a few that people have sent me, uh, and actually Peter would be the one. He's the one who knows where everything is. I'm just a
Take care
consultant.
of him.
I'm a consultant now. I'm working on getting books published mainly.
Yeah, yeah.
And this will bring up another comment on photos. I have a book coming out in September, Tatsara Stories,
Yeah.
and it only goes through the first year, 1967, and then
Really
there's
looking
two other volumes to follow. And
great.
I have, many photographs from back then. But whenever I had photographs, I would turn them over to the Zen Center. I'd scan them and turn them over. And when I wanted to look through some of the photographs I didn't have of back then, 60s and 70s, they don't have them anymore. They gave all their archives to Bancroft Library, and that makes them inaccessible. They turned all the archives over. And university archives are graveyards. Anyway, I mean,
Yeah.
Bancroft has said they won't get to it, I think, for 5 years.
Yeah.
And even then, accessing is ridiculous. But that might change. Everything's changing with AI coming in and things like that evolve. So,
I was running around with my camera before I had permission to, and I didn't know you keep your negatives. And so I have a wonderful picture of that entrance at Green Gulch, the entrance to Cloud Hall by the ranch house before the renovation. Just
yeah.
precious. I have a photograph of the lettuce table at Tassajara before they put in the big walk-in refrigerator. I have just a few of those precious old pictures. Picture of Reb leaning out of his window looking happy,
Ah,
but just a few. And then certainly when I went digital, it got easier. A lot
yeah.
of what I was doing this winter was scanning in. I have boxes and boxes full of beautiful prints from my Tassajara time that I don't know. There they are.
Well, um, so you should scan your old stuff.
I know.
Uh,
I know.
what? Do you have a scanner?
Yes, and I started scanning this winter and then thought that it was not, the easiest. Anyway, yes, precious. I, Here's some on my desk. There's a picture of the Chica shack with a quince blossom in front of it. Those
At
memories of
Tassajara?
this, yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful Tassajara
The
place.
Sheikah
Yeah,
Shack. That's Sheikah's the guest host. Um,
yes.
I don't know about a Sheikah Shack. Huh.
It was right there where they stored the sheets and towels. And
Yeah. Well, um, that's very interesting. One one thing about the photographs is I always try to keep in mind, and I've said this many times on podcasts because it comes up a lot. Philip Whalen's admonition, what he'd said to me when I was bemoaning the loss of the library at Naropa and all the great art and everything, and of course the thousands and thousands of monks that were killed. But I was talking more about the library and artifacts and everything, and he went, "Oh, David, just enough survives."
beautiful.
Isn't that
It's
great?
great. It's
So,
great.
so that's like the motto of Cuke Archives.
Great. Yeah. Yeah.
And AA will be able to. We have a lot of photographs that we just get out of windmills that are not very good scans, even. I mean, that those photographs are at Bancroft now. So all we've got is the what's in the windmill. But AI is going to be able to bring them back to life
Uh-huh.
pretty soon. It already can,
Fill in the
uh,
pixels.
somewhat. But I just I'm not dealing with that right now, but because I try to focus on doing things that other people can't do.
Yes, and you are
Yeah,
right now, these interviews.
or can't
Yeah.
do, or aren't.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I'm going to go back to the Zen Center can be mean to people thing.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
that also has a positive side in getting people to leave and find out they can live and practice without Zen Center.
Getting us to grow up.
Yeah,
I was, I wanted them to take care of me, right? And they said no. It was a time, there were a few older people, mostly women, who were asked to leave one way and another at that time. And I think at that time, Zen Center was seeing that they were going to end up with, they were just going to be an old folks home,
Yeah.
because there was the promise of, you work for us for 20 years and you can have room and board. And at that time, Jerome was always there. Jerome was the example of the person who accepted that offer. And he was so old, and he was so sweet, sitting in the small kitchen talking to the young students. So it seemed that a few of us were kindly escorted out at that time.
But
That
Jerome
was what.
wasn't escorted out, was he?
Oh, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
No, Jerome was fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Jerome was.
I see. I didn't follow you right.
It was just, but Jerome was an example of, everybody knew all you have to do is hold on for 20 years and then your old age is secure. Now it has turned out to be that way, in greater luxury than anyone would have dreamed of with Enso Village, but we didn't know about that at the time. And it did seem then that there were a few of us. Jana Draka is an example. It was around the same time. It was like, no more future for you here. And it seemed that that was part of the impulse.
Yeah.
So I think that there's long been a tension between between being kind and surviving financially for that
Yeah.
magnificent institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there have been people who've come back to Zen Center, tried to, and haven't been able to. There have been a few suicides around that too. Sorry.
Terrible. No,
Oh,
I
you
know.
just,
I'm not. It's so heartbreaking. So
yeah.
terrible. So
Well,
terrible.
yeah.
But I'm gonna cheer things up and say I certainly understand at this point that the way my life has gone couldn't possibly be better. And the way my life has gone outside of Zen Center, so I can't. I'd like to hold a grudge, but if I look at the facts, there's no room for it. I know that my life, and particularly my opportunity to be what's called a Zen teacher, it was absolutely imperative that I get out of there and grow up, become who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I told Richard Baker when, he didn't want me. I moved to Bolinas, and I'd been a Zen Center company man for 10 years. He and I were having arguments, but, that it wasn't, it didn't really hurt our relationship. We were just, but he wanted me, to come back. He wanted me to run the bakery when it started. And I said, no. I said, I've got to find my own strength.
That's it.
And I
That's
came back and did things quite a bit. I did a lot of things after that, but I wasn't a Zen Center slave anymore.
Yeah. It was after, I think I ordained in '03. And after I was ordained, it was so easy to adopt a role. And it was there was quite a group agreement. Here's what a priest does, here's how a priest behaves, here's how she moves, I had to be able to shuck that off. I was putting that priest head on over my own. I put the okesa over all of my flaws, And of course, my flaws won. So I had, it
That's
was
funny.
too, there was a lot of comfort there. And we also were pretty peevish with each other about it. Oh, well, oh, you're a priest and you're doing that. We would talk to each other that way. So getting out from under that and being a priest in the world, and I've never stopped being a priest and being outside of a temple on my own and always having that vow in view. And this is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. And
Mm.
as we landed on earlier, I'm getting pretty old. I'm 82 years old. And I really feel like this growing up project is starting to get somewhere. I don't want to I don't want to die quite yet. I'm really just it's really getting interesting.
Yeah.
Takes a long time to be able to teach, and I do feel that my development was cut short when Steve died. Could have been a lot different if I'd been able to, but I also feel, I hope it's true, that his teaching, we were together intimately for 20 years. That's pretty good. So that when I'm in a pickle, I'm able to turn and remember what his teaching would be, which usually was just be kind.
Uh-huh.
You don't you don't have to talk. Just be kind, be patient. So, and it will happen when I'm really having difficulty that something that he said to me will come popping up in my brain
Mm.
and really help.
Mm.
So I have a wonderful relationship with Norman, but it's he's not my teacher. Steve's still teaching, but there were certainly times when it could have been handy if I could have picked up a phone and talked to the guy.
Uh-huh.
But I can't because he's dead. So
Mm.
I put together this as I teach. I have noticed I had a certain stories about him that I always turned to. So I put together that little book of my stories about Steve and collected stories from other people, and that is a sweet little book. I'm very glad that it exists.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Make sure that that we I forgot. I'm sure we have something on that on
I
kook.com.
think so. I've written three books. I kept a journal when I was first at Tassajara,
Oh, we
and that
have
one's
that,
called
right?
Remember Entering the Monastery. And then I worked really hard on a hospice book. I
Yeah.
thought that I thought that would really take the world by storm, but no, I self-published it, and I'm glad it's there. Love and Fear, and then I did the little book about Steve. So I always wanted to be a writer. So oh, that's nice. Published three books.
Yeah. Um,
They chuck.
well, uh, get hold of me later, and I I think we've got all that covered. But uh,
I'll send you. I'll send you a bunch of links. How's that?
yeah, do that.
Yeah,
Do
yeah,
that.
I'll send mostly the photo because I want people to know that the photos are there.
Yeah.
When I was organizing all of the ceremony photographs, I made one album of the group picture from every ceremony. It is so great, David. It's just all these happy, shiny people at the end of the Tassajara practice period or after ordination.
Ah.
We are we're a wonderful group of people, right? We're really doing something, we're trying to do something that's really hard. And so what a blessing that we have each other, certainly too hard to do alone. So I feel in an album like that I have a picture of us at our best.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we continue at our best, but also at our worst. Uh,
Got to make room for all of it.
yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything that we've missed here that you'd like to talk about?
No, I told you my story about not meeting Suzuki Roshi.
That was great.
I told you how much I appreciate having a close relationship with a real Zen teacher. I told you it was hard at Tassajara. I told you being a hospice chaplain was the greatest training. That was, I had to put on, I had to be kind. I
Yeah,
couldn't be peevish. I couldn't lose my temper. Great training, great training.
yeah.
And I told you that I'm happy with where I find myself now. So I think that's probably, and I think I've told you several times how much I appreciate what you are doing, particularly to keep the legacy, particularly of Suzuki Roshi, alive.
Well, we're all part of that legacy. You know, he by himself, it's not not it. You know, it's all of it. It's him and us.
Great, 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 great. Thank you.
And
Okay, that is that good? Is that us?
yeah, um, hey, the and I want to remember to include your 1964 living uh, right right there on the corner where Sokoji was. I want to include that story in stories about Suzuki because some of the
Oh,
ones
yeah,
some of the ones where they didn't meet or just was very brief or something, and then came back later. Philip Whalen is an example of that. Uh, uh, are I
you
don't
know
know.
what else?
They're a nice part of it, you know.
I met Waylon and Lou Welch in the house in the Fillmore. There was a poet named John Armstrong who took me by, and that was around 64 too.
Well,
Yeah.
you're talking about the Hyphen House, probably. Uh, uh, there was the Hyphen House, and there was the East West House, and
It,
they
it was in the
both.
hay, had an avocado tree in the front yard.
Well, you know, I don't. They were both in that neighborhood, and they had, Philip Whalen lived in. I assume Lou Welsh, Claude Dallenberg, who managed the first Zen Center apartments across from Sokochi, was involved in a sort of managerial role in the East West House and the Hyphen House.
Uh,
Gary Snyder, Joan Kiger, so many of the early beats, and the early beats had an involvement with Zen Center to one degree or another. That was
sweet times in San Francisco,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very interesting. That yeah, you met Lou Welsh there. I very seldom
Yeah.
hear that.
Yeah. I actually got to meet Lou Welch, and one of them had one of those clickers like a streetcar conductor uses, and it was click, 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 click. And every time he clicked, it was a prayer. But what I don't remember is whether it was Philip Whalen or Lou Welch who was doing that.
Uh huh.
It's
I,
a
d-
little prayer generator.
yeah, I wouldn't know. Uh,
Click, click, click.
that's funny.
Saving the world. Saving the world.
That's
It
funny.
looks like it worked.
That's yeah. That sounds very Tibetan.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I can remember like being in Dharamsala, walking down certain like very narrow little street walkway by a temple. There's all these what are they, like little drums you hit to turn? No, you don't pick
Prayer,
them up with your hand. They're attached to the building. They're
yeah,
round, like little drum, and as you walk by, you hit them to turn the dharma or whatever.
sends prayers into the world. The world needs it.
Yeah. Mm. Well, this has been a very stimulating conversation. I was
I
really,
appreciate it. Really am so grateful and honored to be included in the archives, to be, I mean, what can I say about actually being in the lineage? What joy it is.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this, David. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it too. I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll send you a bunch of links.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll go fix that window.
All right. Well, you take care.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, David.
Bye-bye. So, thanks a lot, Renshin Bunce. Interesting story, and a lot of fun talking with you. Yeah, that's all great. I'm really impressed with the path you have trod. This has been a Cuke Audio Podcast. I'm DC, Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives, coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggy Bandita, Feline Manis, and dear lovely Katrinka. And we're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.